Of course, I grow lots of flowers here. I've got a fuchsia that's growing right now next to the house near the door, and I've also started some herbs for fall planting, which I've started some summer savory, and there's some basil. Of course, they are not up yet. Just planted them maybe 2-3 days ago. And then there is some lemon balm over here, which there is 1 or 2 of them up. And I also have some chives that are growing, and my lemon tree. I started the lemon tree about 2 years ago, and it is now about 3 feet tall. And I've just got it sitting out here for the summertime. It goes back in the winter. And then I have a strawberry patch, and yes, that is a kiddie pool that I have put the strawberries into. That was new. We had a kiddie pool that actually got some holes in it. I had seen the suggestion online, so I went ahead and tried it out, and it is working great so far. If you hear some dogs barking, those are my 2 little toy poodles that are in the house, and you can see some of my gardening things. I kind of put them everywhere that I'm working on. Of course, we have some petunias here, different colors, and these are old pots that actually came in the garden shed that came with the house. I have a mint, marjoram, some hens and chicks, and also some foxgloves, I believe, and a lavender. And that lavender was actually started from seeds that I found in the house that were about 30 years old. And I planted probably 10 seeds, and 5 of them came up, and there you go. More petunias, pansies, and violas, and more petunias. And it just keeps going out through here. We have quite a lot of them that are growing. And then I have rosemary. And these were some volunteer violas that had came up in the garden, so we just transplanted those yesterday. And this was one of those flower bombs that you get at the Dollar Tree, which looks like it has only turned out to be what looks like maybe a pansy and a clover that has came up out of it. So wouldn't guarantee those seeds. Button marigolds, and these are 5 transplants of some petunias that had came up in the garden on their own. And then one of my pumpkins, it's actually 2 pumpkins here, plants. There was 5 that were planted, 3 of which got killed out by hail and damaged by a toddler, because I have my grandson living here with my daughter. And as you can see, this pumpkin goes and goes and goes, and so far it is setting fruit. So I will hand pollinate it, because I don't think the honeybees know that this stuff is over here, because it's closer to the house. And then I have this interesting contraption came with the house as well. It looks like it was a frame for a wagon wheel, and they just drilled some holes and put some chains in it, and it works great. And put a big steel pot on it, or cast iron pot, and that has been working great for just all kinds of things. I've got my pansies in there, and there were some petunias, but I think the pansies have taken over. And then we have a hook with some pansies and all kinds of things going on, and I think these are impatiens. And we also feed the birds here, so you see a hole set up there with pansies and violas and marigolds and all kinds of things over there, and all of the bird seed and hummingbird feeders. And then we of course have the extensions on the pots, which also give you more flowers. And then I also have I forget what these plants are called. It was on the tip of my tongue, and then now it's gone. But we have these here. I'm sure someone will recognize what they are, because they're quite prevalent everywhere, and they do bloom more in the fall, because this is kind of a shaded area. And as you can see, there's more in the back. And then I had lots and lots of lilies that are growing here and there, and irises, but of course the irises are gone and the lilies are just about gone as well. And then we have a fence line, and the fence line is covered in Virginia creeper. all the way out to the end. So pretty neat there. And then I have a manzanilla, I believe it's called, that I had just picked up and did not realize that this thing gets about 10 or 15 feet tall. So we will keep trellising that and probably transplant it in a larger pot. Some garden sage that I started, and it is just growing wonderfully. A larger type of thyme. I actually have two types of thyme. One it's planted in a smaller garden. I have 3 gardens here, 1 large and 2 smaller. This is an old basil that I had last year, and I'm letting it go to seed right now. It's actually its second year, and I'm letting it go to seed. I didn't let it go to seed last season, so I actually grow all of my basil in the winter time as well. Some Gerber daisies, and I have lots of seeds that are saved from these. I don't know if they actually will come up, but I'm going to try it. And then here's another basil that I had planted a little bit earlier in the season, and it's really beginning to take off. And yeah, it looks like they're a little bit crowded, but I like my basil like that because it keeps it from blooming like crazy. And then this is my Paris lettuce. It is just about ready to go bolting because of the heat. But this lettuce was actually planted back in May and has lasted through the entire summer. We have eaten and eaten and eaten lettuce. And then I've got some black-seeded Simpson that has started right there, which is really small. And then some radishes, which are right now getting ready to be pulled up because they're all ready. And that'll probably be the last harvest of radishes unless I get more seed. We've had problems trying to get seed in Wyoming. There has been a shortage since coronavirus. This is my giant Caesar lettuce, and I will probably thin that out in the next few days so they will be bigger heads. So it's more like a romaine lettuce. I have the giant Caesar and I have the little Caesar, which is a little bit smaller type, and not quite as compact, I don't think. So I have that, and then I've started some collards. This is actually the second round of collards. I just planted those about 2 weeks ago, and they are just now getting really started. Cilantro, and I have 3 batches of cilantro that I have planted. The third batch is already gone because I have already harvested it and leaving the rest of it to go to seed. I have a parsley patch back there, which is actually a lot smaller than it was this past season. It was enormous, and I cut it back a whole lot and took out some of the old stalks and planted some more. And there's spinach all throughout there, which will be coming on and probably being bigger by the time that early fall hits. I have chives and bunching onions, which I do plant together. I don't have any problem if they decide to cross, which has not happened. The chives patch is small, but I have, honestly, for us, a family of 4, we have plenty of chives. And lots of onions, which got damaged by hail, but they are still putting on big bulbs. Some of them are pretty large, if you can see the stalks down in there. I do start pulling the dirt away from them, so that way they get even larger. And this is actually a mixed bunch of onions of all different colors and varieties because I don't like one variety. And then I had some transplant onions from the last season that I had put in here, and I had actually fit them between cabbages, which I just harvested just a few minutes ago. And I've got 4 large heads of cabbage. I'd already harvested 1 earlier, which was large, and I've got 1 left that is going to get much bigger before I harvest it. I have garlic, and I think this is a soft neck variety of garlic. I don't remember exactly. Some of it was purple garlic, so waiting for it. I am starting to see a little bit of browning on it, so I hope that it pulls through. I have not attempted growing garlic here yet, but so far I've been happy with it. Looks like the bulbs are getting pretty large down in there. And here is my second patch of cilantro. This cilantro is a couple weeks older than that first patch that I showed you. and I've already harvested it, and it'll probably have a second or third harvest before fall hits. I have started some acorn squash, which this squash is actually mature in 52 days. So it will be ready probably in the middle of September before we get our first frost. This is my pea patch, and this was a kind of an accident because I had gotten some Cascadian peas, and it said on the package that they were not, that they did not need to be trellised. They were self-supporting. That is incorrect. Looks like they get about 2.5, 3 feet tall, because if you look, they're kind of all wrapped in with each other, and they really do need to be trellised. And then I planted some radishes between each row of peas, except for the middle row, so I could still reach everything. I have a very small area to grow, so I try to keep everything compact and well fertilized as far as organic fertilizers, if I use any at all. I don't have a tendency to use fertilizers often, and I don't do it like the package because I don't like even organic things maybe possibly having chemicals in them. A couple of weeds in there I need to pull, but I do try to keep everything very well weeded as well, because weeds do take away from the nutrition of the plants. Even if you have a lot of room, keep the weeds out of there. So I have some peppers back here, which I just planted these 2 particular peppers, if you can see, that are a different color than the others. Those are gypsy peppers, and they're just now starting to set fruit. And I had just planted those maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. So they have not started getting bigger yet, but they will. There will be lots of peppers because we'll have a lot of heat in August that'll get them pulling on. You can see an artichoke back there. Looks like a giant thistle, and it is starting to get the center section. If you can see the bunch of stuff back there, I don't want to go crawling through the garden because I don't want to step on anything, because we do have everything kind of compact together. There is another patch of spinach over there that is about a week older that'll probably get ready sooner. And then I have just regular bell peppers there, that's the darker green ones, and those do have some peppers on them, as you can see, but they will get much bigger and have more peppers on them. I have a large zucchini plant. Actually, I have several and they are kind of taking over the garden as far as their width, but that's okay because it kind of shades some things and keeps them a little bit cooler, which I'm okay with. And I've got an onion that is going to seed over there that I'm saving the seeds for. And I think it's a Walla Walla, if I remember correctly. It came up from last season, and I will save the seeds on those for next season, which will be plenty for us. I've got beefsteak tomatoes, which are probably about 3 feet tall now, and they do have tomatoes on them. In fact, I've even got one that is getting ripe, not very big, but it is getting ripe. And that one is actually just spilling over the top of the cages. So is this one. And it does have a lot of fruit on this one. It actually has quite a few down there. If you can kind of, yeah, there you go. Kind of see them down there. I also have some butterhead lettuce that is planted at the base of the tomatoes. A volunteer sunflower that came up right there. And as you can see, there are cucumbers, later cucumbers that are planted in between each of the tomatoes. And then also some parsley, which is coming up in loads. And that is actually a flat leaf parsley this time instead of the curly leaf. I have more tomatoes, more beefsteak, lots and lots of tomatoes on them. And then I have a sickly one, and I'm not real sure what's going on with it, but I keep trimming the bad leaves off of it. And it does, if you can look in the center, it is coming out cleaner and better, so it should come along just fine. Then I have some red curry squash, and I have got them trained to go vining up the trellis that I have here. And the plants are pretty massive. I've got about 6 that are down in there. but I will trim them back to keep them from just going crazy. And then I have more cucumbers planted at the base of the trellis. And I don't plant very many cucumber plants because they have so many on them, on each plant. And it's just plenty for us. I usually put around 5-6 gallons of pickles every season. And then I have a Crenshaw melon here that is taking off and will probably set fruit in the next couple of weeks, as well as a cucumber that was kind of sickly earlier. So I transplanted it over here and now it's pulling out of it and taking off. A husky cherry tomato, which I picked up at Walmart for clearance more towards the end of the season, and it is taking off and, as you can see, starting to bloom. So it should have plenty of husky cherry tomatoes. And then there are Jet Star tomatoes back there. And I actually have 17 tomato plants, 18 with the husky cherry tomato all together. And all of the Jet Star tomatoes have loads and loads of tomatoes on them. I've got one sickly one there. Also the same thing as the other. It kind of looks like the blight. But if you keep trimming the leaves that it look like they are dying on blight tomatoes, they will pull out of it. And as you can see, I've been doing that with that one. And if you look more towards the center, you can see fresh and clean growth coming out. I also have some cucumbers between the tomato plants there, as well as if you look down there, you'll see some blue pumpkins that are just now taking off really well. They get done a little bit earlier as well, so should have some fruit set on them before fall. Beans. And I've had a tough time with beans this year. I've had to replant these 3 times. And I don't know what the problem is. I've heard a lot of gardeners saying the same thing this year. Master gardeners that are having issues with beans, just dying off with when they get up a couple of inches out of the ground and then they just die. And I had the same problem and replanted 3 times. And now they are running, so they are getting ready to go. And I've actually had one that survived everything the first planting around and has had beans on it. It is climbing the trellis, and these other ones should shortly follow. So we'll have some beans this year, even though it took 3 times to get them. In front of the beans, which I found is a good thing to plant dill all in front of your beans. The beans and the dill complement each other nutritionally. So I have loads of dill. I've already harvested that dill probably 4 or 5 times, and it is coming back out. I will let it go to seed this time. As you can see, the blooms are on it, and then I will save the seeds for next year. Cucumber between everything. It may or may not make it. That's fine. It was a transplant. Sunflowers, which are forming heads, getting big. These are about 6 feet tall. I have more dill that is younger planted all along the edge here, as well as Roma tomatoes for paste and tomato sauce. I have onions that'll be coming up right in front of these tomatoes, and as well as more zucchini and early prolific straight neck squash. I don't like the crook neck because I don't feel like I get as much out of them as I do the straight necks, so I always plant the straight necks. Now that's the first garden, and that was actually a converted flower bed, so it's a very long, narrow type of garden. Now I have in a second garden, which is smaller, about 20 by 25, it has potatoes, and these are red potatoes, Norcota, I believe, or it may be the early reds. I got 2 varieties and I don't remember which is which, and I already harvested, as you can see, the earlier, I really want to say they were early Yukon Gold Russet, and got quite a good harvest out of that. I only got 2 5-pound bags of seedling or seed potatoes, Planted those and they did great. The vines were over 3 feet tall, in which now they are starting to die back on the red ones. And I will let those completely die yellow brown before I harvest those, because they are for winter. More sunflowers here, which were kind of shaded, so they're not going to be as tall, and that's just fine with me. But they will bloom. And then I had a red curry squash, which is kind of taking over everything. And yellow and black diamond watermelon. Loads and loads of vines there. And a melon, and I don't remember what type of melon. I think this may be a mango hybrid between everything, and it'll come out just fine. As you can see, it's starting to get its running stalk. And then the big sunflowers. These are probably 7 feet tall by now, and they are forming heads. And in the middle of all of that is jack-o'-lanterns, and they are setting some larger sized jack-o'-lanterns, as you can see. And there's actually quite a large one that's in the midsection that I don't think I can get a picture of. And there are some red curry that are mixed in there with that. I don't care if they cross because they taste good in the end. And then my corn. I plant everything together that complements each other and can run up the stalks of the corn. And this is called an early sun glow hybrid. I don't really like using hybrids, and I don't know if I'm going to like this one, but as you can see, I could have some corn already that is just about ready. So we will see how it tastes. They don't get very big. They are 3.5, 4 feet tall, which is just right for this size because the ears only get 7 inches. It is a dwarf size corn. And then I have a red curry here that is running quite long and will be setting fruit very soon. I think it already has one on it. And then I have some acorn squash down in the midst there, which you probably cannot see, and beans between the corn. So they run up the corn and actually help to keep them stable from wind. And then I have actually a third garden, much smaller here, and I have butternut squash, turnips, lemon balm, and basil, which the basil didn't do well over here, so I won't do that again here. And as you can see, there is a pumpkin on that. That is probably another jack-o'-lantern. I do not remember at this point. But we'll find out. It all comes out good in the end. My oregano, this is an herb patch originally. 2 big bunches of oregano that is blooming right now, and the bees just love it. And this is the other thyme that I was talking about, and this is called elf thyme. And I found that I don't like to work with it very much because it is so small. And I have some Armenian cucumbers here that may or may not do anything. I haven't been successful at it so far here in Wyoming, so I stick to the other cucumbers mostly, columbines. And then I have butternut squash here, which is beginning to set fruit. So that is the end of my 3 garden patches here in Wyoming. And yes, you can grow plenty of garden things in Wyoming. You just have to work with the wind and the hail, which is running things up the stalks of corn to make it more stable, or anything that gets really tall. You can even do that with sunflowers. I didn't do that with mine because I've never had a problem with hail and or wind with my sunflowers because the leaves get so big. So that is it. Hope everyone liked it.